Political analyst Richard Haydarian sparked outrage with a provocative comparison. He likened Luzon's Human Development Index to that of Southern Europe. In contrast, he placed Mindanao's HDI on par with Sub Saharan Africa. This statement ignited accusations of racism and insensitivity. Critics pointed to the long history of colonial exploitation of Africa by Southern European powers. Haydarian's words, intended to highlight regional disparities within the Philippines, instead ignited a firestorm of controversy. Haydarian argued that his assessment was based on objective HDI data. He accused his detractors of spreading misinformation and misrepresenting his words. However, the damage was done. The incident brought to light the sensitive issue of regional imbalance in the Philippines. It also underscored the lingering legacy of colonialism and its impact on perceptions of development and progress. Southern European countries, particularly Spain and Portugal, have a dark history of colonialism in Africa. They viewed the continent as a source of wealth and resources ripe for extraction. This exploitation took many forms. Slavery, a brutal system of forced labor, saw millions of Africans trafficked across the Atlantic. Natural resources, from gold and diamonds to rubber and timber, were plundered to fuel European economies. This systematic exploitation had devastating and lasting consequences for Africa. It crippled local economies, decimated populations, and created deep-seated inequalities that persist to this day. The transatlantic slave trade ripped apart families and communities, leaving behind a legacy of trauma and cultural disruption. Colonial powers, focused on extracting wealth, invested little in the development of their African colonies. This lack of investment left many regions impoverished and underdeveloped, struggling to catch up even after gaining independence. Haydarian's controversial comparison, though inflammatory, draws attention to uncomfortable parallels within the Philippines. Luzon, the country's economic and political center, has historically benefited at the expense of Mindanao. This dynamic echoes the exploitative relationship between Southern Europe and its African colonies. Mindanao, rich in natural resources, has often seen its wealth siphoned off to fuel development in Luzon. Development projects often prioritize Luzon, leaving Mindanao lagging behind in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. This neglect has fueled poverty and instability in the region, creating a vicious cycle of underdevelopment. While Haydarian's direct comparison to Africa may be debatable, it highlights a systemic issue within the Philippines: the historical exploitation of Mindanao's resources and the lack of equitable development mirror, to some extent, the colonial experience of Africa. The disparity between Luzon and Mindanao is not just a matter of historical injustice. It continues to manifest in stark economic indicators. Mindanao consistently lags behind Luzon in key development metrics. Poverty rates are significantly higher, access to education and healthcare is limited, and infrastructure remains underdeveloped. This imbalance fuels resentment and instability, contributing to social unrest and conflict in the region. Addressing this persistent disparity requires a concerted effort to break the cycle of neglect and exploitation. Investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure in Mindanao is crucial. Equitable distribution of resources and opportunities is essential to bridge the gap and create a more just and prosperous Philippines. Ignoring these issues will only perpetuate the existing inequalities and undermine the country's overall development. Haydarian's controversial remarks, though widely condemned, have inadvertently sparked a much-needed conversation about regional disparity and the long shadow of colonialism.